Picture a kitchen table on the first Wednesday of the month. Two Social Security deposits used to land there month after month. One was for $2,900 and the other for $1,700. That table balanced the mortgage, the groceries, and the little trips. Then one morning, the smaller check simply stops coming. Here's the part almost nobody tells you about survivors. The survivor does not get to keep both of those checks. She keeps the higher check and loses the smaller one entirely. That is $1,700 a month gone forever, on top of the loss. Not for a year, not for a decade, but for the rest of her life. The bills, though, they barely move at all. This quiet trap sits inside almost every married couple's retirement. Most people never see it until the day it finally fires. A household comfortable on two checks now has to survive on one. And the one that is left is often the same size it always was. The mistake is usually made 10 or 20 years earlier at a desk. Let me be honest about what is actually at stake here. When one spouse dies, income can fall 30 to 40% overnight. The average survivor benefit was about $1,574 a month in 2025. For many widows, that single check is the floor they now stand on. Most couples watch the household benefit shrink by $500 to $200 a month. Run the math on a couple pulling $2,400 and $3,600 together. Lose the smaller one, and that is $28,800 a year gone. Over a 15-year retirement, that is hundreds of thousands lost. Money the couple earned that simply never reaches the survivor. Another couple at $1,500 and $4,000 loses $18,000 a year. The rent, meanwhile, does not send a sympathy card. For many households, that lost check is not extra. It is essential. The grief and the budget shock arrive in the exact same month. And the paperwork does not wait politely for anyone to recover. Here is what almost nobody tells you: the rules are not the problem. The rules are actually written to protect the survivor, if you use them. The whole game comes down to two choices couples treat as afterthoughts. Get those right, and the survivor is cushioned for life. And this is not rare, it is hiding in most marriages right now. The couples who avoid it are simply the ones who looked first. Get them wrong, and the survivor is left completely stranded. Stay to the end, because the last piece ties all of this together. It reframes the biggest decision in Social Security into something surprising. Once you see it, you honestly cannot ever unsee it again. Let us start with the rule that everyone gets completely backwards. Social Security does not add the two checks and split them in half. The survivor moves on to the larger benefit, and the smaller one disappears. No phase out, no partial credit, no exception in the fine print. It is a hard switch. Two deposits one month, one deposit the next. People assume the government is kinder than this, and it is not. The smaller check is switched off, like a light in an empty room. Let that single rule sink in before we go any further. It sounds harsh, but the logic underneath it is actually simple. A household is meant to hold one primary benefit, not two. Now watch what that rule does to one very real couple. Say the husband's benefit is $20,900 and the wife's is $1,700. While both are alive, the household sees $4,600 a month. He passes first, she keeps his $2,900 and loses her own $1,700. Her income did not rise because she is now a widow. It fell by more than a third in a single month. The mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, all of it was built on $4,600. Now, all of it has to fit inside a single $2,900 check. Costs barely fall when a household drops from two people to one. The house is the same size, and the heating bill is nearly identical. Property taxes do not care how many people sleep inside. A single survivor often needs 70 to 80% of the old budget. But the income can drop to half or even less. That gap is the widow's squeeze, and it is entirely predictable. You can see it coming years before it ever arrives. Which means, thankfully, you also have years to prepare for it. Here is the first lever that decides how hard that squeeze hits. It is the age the higher earner first turns on their check. This is exactly where couples quietly hand away thousands of dollars. An early claim shrinks his own check and hers, for both lifetimes. Take a man whose full benefit at full retirement age is $1,000. If he claims at 62, he locks in roughly $700 a month. If he waits to full retirement age, he gets the full $1,000. If he holds out to 70, credits push him to about $1,320. Same man, same work record, 3 very different checks. And whichever one he picks becomes permanent the day he signs. There is no do-over, no second window, once that choice is locked. The check he chooses at 62 feels like his money, his call. But it is quietly writing a number onto her future too. Now bring his widow into the picture, because this is the key part. A survivor at her own full age gets 100% of his check. His check does not just feed him, it becomes her ceiling. So if he claimed at 62, she stands on that shrunken $700 base. Had he waited to 70, she would stand on roughly 1,320. Same husband, same death, and yet a completely different widowhood. That is nearly double the monthly income for the rest of her life. His delayed credits do not vanish when he passes away. Waiting adds about 8% a year, and it outlives him. It is the closest thing Social Security has to a raise that survives you. Most people fear dying before they collect, so they grab it early. But that fear ignores the person most likely to outlive them. The survivor is usually the wife, and she usually lives longer. There is a second lever, and it works the opposite direction. It is the age the survivor first claims the survivor benefit. A survivor can start as early as 60, but the amount gets cut. Claiming at 60 shrinks it to about 71.5%. So one dial sets the pot, and the other sets how much she collects. Here is where a real strategy hides that nobody explains at the counter. Survivor benefits and your own retirement benefit are 2 separate things. So a survivor can take one first and switch to the other later. She starts a survivor check early and lets her own benefit keep growing. Then she flips to her own larger check at age 70. A busy field agent will rarely map that path out for you. They answer the question you asked, not the one you should have. That sequencing has added over $100,000 in lifetime income in real cases. It is not a loophole, it is simply the rules, used on purpose. The trouble is, this switch strategy is not on any brochure. You often have to know to ask for it by name. Ask the wrong way, and the office simply gives you the default. There is a floor rule that softens the very worst case. The survivor gets the greater of his actual check, or a set minimum. That minimum is about 82.5% of his full amount. The early claim still hurts, but there is a cushion under it. Waiting still buys the survivor far more than that floor ever will. And you do not even have to be currently married for this to hit. Married 10 years, then divorced, you may still claim on that record. A woman may have a survivor benefit waiting on an ex she never sees. Almost nobody checks, and Social Security will not call to remind you. And there is a tiny detail people trip over in an awful week. The survivor must actually contact Social Security to switch the benefit. Miss that step, and the one check she depends on can stall. There is also a one-time death payment of just $255. That number has not moved since the 1950s, and barely buys gas. Let us climb up to the bigger picture, because checks are only half of it. When one spouse dies, the survivor's tax situation changes the next year. A couple files jointly with a wide forgiving set of brackets. In 2026, that joint standard deduction is a healthy $32,200. The next year, the survivor files as a single person instead. Her standard deduction is cut roughly in half down to $1,600, and the single brackets clamp down much faster on her income. The government does not shrink its brackets just because she is alone. She can earn less than the couple did, and still owe a higher rate. Planners call it the widow's penalty, a quiet double hit. Put a number on it so it is not just an abstract idea. Say a couple lived on $90,000, comfortably in the 12% bracket. The husband dies, and the next year she draws about $70,000. Less money, yet part of it now gets taxed at 22%. She earns less and keeps a smaller share of it at the same time. The same rooms, the same lifestyle, now taxed as a single filer. That penalty arrives on schedule, yet almost no one plans for it. The fix is to shift money into Roth accounts while both still file jointly. Every dollar moved into a Roth today is a dollar taxed at the low rate, and it comes out completely tax-free for the survivor later. The couple that plans this hands the survivor a much softer landing. The survivor's tax bill is being set right now by the couple. So if you want one rule of thumb, here it is plainly. The higher earner should delay as long as the household can stand it. That bigger check is quietly protecting 2 whole lifetimes, not one. The lower earner has more freedom to claim a little earlier. So there is little point protecting a check that will not survive. The lower earner can enjoy a few extra years of income instead. Their smaller check is the one likely to disappear anyway. Most couples do the exact opposite, without ever meaning to. They grab the big number first because it feels like the smart move. Now let me be honest, because none of this is free. Waiting to claim is a bet, and the bet has a real downside. Those 8 years without a check are a real sacrifice to plan for. Not every household can afford to wait, and that is okay. To delay from 62 to 70, he must bridge those years somehow. If both spouses are in poor health, claiming early can be the right call. You want to collect while you actually can, and that is fair. The strategy is not to wait no matter what happens. The strategy is to match the claim to the real odds. And here is the piece couples always seem to miss. If the younger, healthier spouse will live long, delaying still protects them. His own health matters less than how long she will live. You are betting on the longer of the 2 lives, not just your own. That single reframe flips a lot of early claiming decisions around. One more honest caveat, this is not every couple's disaster. If both spouses earned similar amounts, the drop is a little gentler. The trap bites hardest where the 2 checks are far apart. That is most single-earner homes, and most stay-at-home parents. 1 earner, 1 long marriage, and 1 very lopsided pair of checks. That is the exact shape where the trap does the most damage. If that is you, this claiming date is your biggest retirement decision. Which brings us to the last piece, the one that ties it together. Stop thinking about his claiming age as a decision about him. It is the cheapest life insurance policy that couple will ever own. There is no medical exam and no monthly premium to pay. The only premium is patience. A few years of waiting to claim. Frame it that way. And delaying stops feeling like a gamble. It starts feeling like the kindest thing he can quietly do. When he delays, every extra dollar becomes her income for life. That is often 10 or 15 years past the first death. You are not maximizing a benefit, you are setting a floor under her. The higher that floor, the softer every hard year that follows. And she never has to ask her children for a single dollar. Look at 2 paths side by side, and the whole thing snaps clear. Couple A, the high earner grabs his check at 62 for $700. He dies at 78, and his widow then lives all the way to 90, cutting coupons, skipping the trips, watching every single dollar. 12 long years on that shrunken $700 floor. Couple B, the high earner waits to 70 and builds $1,320. He dies at the very same 78, and she lives the same 12 years. She keeps the trips, keeps the house, keeps her dignity intact, but she lives them on nearly double the monthly income. Tens of thousands more, from the same record and the same lifespan. Not luck, not the market, not some secret investment nobody has. Just a date, chosen on purpose, years before it ever mattered. The only difference was the date written on a single form. Here is the line to carry out of this whole thing. The day you claim is the day you set your spouse's floor. Everything else is just arithmetic sitting on top of that floor. Notice how quietly the mistake happens, and that is what makes it common. Nobody sits down intending to leave their spouse short. There is no alarm, no warning letter, no agent who says it aloud. The trap is not cruelty, it is a blind spot. And blind spots are fixable. So think about the 2 people who most need to hear this. A healthy man in his early 60s, married to a younger wife. Her mother lived to 94, and he is about to claim at 62. He is healthy, so he assumes the early check is the safe move. He is claiming because his buddy did, and the money is right there. And a woman who just lost her husband last month. The house is quiet now, and so is half of the income. She stares at a single deposit where 2 used to land. She wonders why nobody warned her the rent would not shrink too. One is a warning still in time, the other is the aftermath. The first person can still change the ending of this story. The second is living inside a decision made years ago at a desk. One of them still holds the pen, and the other holds only the bill. The difference between them is not luck, it is timing understood early. Same rules, and yet two very different Wednesdays at the table. If someone you love is about to claim, send them this first. It is the one decision here that you truly cannot take back. Share it with the spouse who thinks this is only about them. Like this if it made the hidden trap finally visible, and subscribe. The next one is the tax move retirees waste right before age 73.